I'm quitting my job, you'll take care of us while I figure things out. That was my sister's text at 8:12 a.m. No greeting. No hesitation. Just entitlement, like I was her emergency fund with a pulse. I stared at the screen toothbrush in my mouth, wondering how a single sentence could erase 15 years of holding this family together. For a moment, I almost did what I always do, say, yes, send money, save the day. But something in me broke clean this time. I wiped my hands, typed 4 words I'd never said before, "That's not on me," and hit send. 10 minutes later, I signed an overseas contract waiting in my inbox. Then my phone lit up again. Mom. And what she wrote next didn't just test my patience, it made me realize love in this house was never unconditional. It was always transactional. I'm Callan Reese, and this is the day my family stopped seeing me as a person and started seeing what I was without them. Before I share my story, I'd love to know you're here with me. Drop a simple hi in the comments or tell me where you're watching from. I love to see how far my story can reach. Thank you. And now, let me tell you everything. And if this kind of story hits something deep inside you, don't forget to subscribe. It helps me keep sharing these moments raw, real, and maybe a little too close to home. The rain in Portland wasn't loud, just a steady whisper against the 10th floor window while my coffee maker rattled like it had a small cough. Cold light pooled over the little galley kitchen, the kind that makes Chrome look honest. My laptop sat open on the counter beside the sink, the subject line waiting where I'd left it. Offer letter. Asia Ops, Singapore. I'd read it 3 times since last night and still hadn't signed. At 8:12 a.m., my phone buzzed on the butcher block. Taryn, I'm quitting my job. You'll take care of us while I figure things out. No greeting, no emoji, no question mark, just a decree like rent coming due. I didn't move for a beat. Toothbrush still in my mouth, hand damp from the faucet, heart thudding at the base of my throat. This is how it's always been. I thought how our family keeps the peace, I absorb the hit. The room stays quiet. Mom calls it support. Dad calls it respect. Taryn calls it being there. Lydia is the only one who's ever called it what it is. You've been buying love. I set the brush down, wiped my hands on a dish towel, and typed 4 words I'd never typed to my family in a decade. That's not on me. My thumb hovered, then fell. Send. The coffee maker clicked itself off. I didn't touch the cup. The air felt newly oxygenated and a little dangerous, like stepping outside after a storm only to realize the sky still hasn't decided what it wants to be. The laptop waited, cursor blinking in the signature field. 15 years of being useful, of paying Dad's hospital copays after the mini-stroke, covering Mom's bakery rent those months. December wasn't enough to hold January, helping Taryn land on her feet after yet another toxic office. And somehow I was still the one apologizing for breathing loud. I clicked sign. A small box bloomed, document completed. No confetti, no drum roll, just a soft confirmation that the ground had shifted under my feet. The phone lit again. Mom, if you won't help your sister, don't come to Thanksgiving. I stared at the words until the screen dimmed, surprised by the quiet inside my chest. I put the phone face down. The coffee had gone from hot to warm, to something I'd never drink. I slid onto a stool, opened my files, and reflex took me to family expenses XLSX. I did not mean to go there. My fingers did it for me the way old habits still reach for light switches in rooms you no longer live in. 8 tabs blinked along the bottom: phone, car, rent, medical, utilities, MISC transfers. Notes, 127 rows inside the main sheet where every dollar had a confession attached. I watched the grid load, then I don't know why closed it without scrolling. Not today. Not again. Outside, the rain drew a thin line down the glass. I caught myself breathing like a man who'd been underwater too long. I thought of Gerald's heavy silence that always came with rules about tone, of Margaret's gentle sermons masquerading as family tradition, of Caleb's big ideas parked in my blind spots, of Aunt Belinda's voice messages about blessings returning tenfold if you give without counting. I thought of Lydia's hands around a mug, the way she listens before she speaks. You've been buying love, Cal, and I thought not this time. I glanced at the folder called Shared Utilities on my desktop, saw my name still sitting in file names that didn't belong to me anymore, and felt the question slide in: how do you cut clean without drawing blood, and who decides what counts as blood? An email pinged, handover. Charleston travel holds for 3 weeks from Monday. I let it sit. Maybe it was foreshadowing or maybe it was just logistics. Either way, it looked like a door. I turned the phone over. Another buzz. I didn't open it. I looked at my signature on the Singapore contract and said out loud to no one I used to be afraid of being left. If being left is the price for saying no, maybe I'm finally free. By evening, the rain had teeth. It tapped the window hard enough to count time while my apartment took on that winter blue cast that makes everything feel 2 degrees colder. I opened familyexpenses.xlsx for real this time. The file fought back for a second, heavy familiar, then unfolded the way only a spreadsheet can, grid after grid, a life reduced to neat cells pretending to be control. 8 sheets across the bottom like stations on a weary commute. Phone, car, rent, medical utilities, missed transfers, notes. The main ledger showed 127 lines marching down in a single quiet indictment. Notes cluttered the margins in my own handwriting. Taryn job change number 6. Mom bakery rent, dad meds. My cursor drifted to recurring charges, first the reliable drains. Phone plan for 4 lines. Taryn's car insurance. Cloud storage that started for a temporary file backup and never ended. Water and electricity at my parents' house where I hadn't slept in years. I moved slow, like undoing a knot. Then I saw it. A new charge pulsing like a bruise near the bottom of the month. Creative Studio subscription, $149 month, initiated last month. The email address on file wasn't mine. The payment method was an old subsidiary card reattached to a profile I could have sworn I'd closed. I felt the floor tilt a fraction, not surprise so much as the confirmation of a hunch I'd been too tired to test. I clicked through to the merchant portal and traced the breadcrumbs. The recovery email listed a familiar domain. The welcome message greeted a first name I knew better than my own. Welcome back, Taryn. I sat back from the keyboard, stared at the ceiling, listened to the rain arguing with the glass. It would have been easy to call right then to light the fuse and watch it burn in real time. My thumb hovered over her contact. Instead, I took screenshots, lots of them capturing timestamps, transaction IDs, the exact wording of consent I had not given. I exported the month to PDF, then the quarter, then the year, made a folder on my desktop and named it what it was, exit plan. The silver coin was on the desk where I'd left it, half under the trackpad, a little sun nicked with grease from another life. Gerald had pressed it into my palm when I was 14 at the shop, said a man needed a weight in his pocket to remember where he came from. I rolled it with my thumb until the ridges etched my skin, that old reflex tugging at something like duty and debt and a boy's version of honor. I opened the notes tab and typed the first honest line I'd written about my family in years: loyalty isn't signing blank checks. My phone buzzed. Lydia, you okay? Her timing was always accidental and exact. I watched the bubble, thought about telling her everything, and didn't. Not yet. This wasn't the moment to vent. This was the moment to build a case against my own reflexes. I checked my email for authorization requests, nothing. No verification codes I'd missed, no. Are you sure, from any gate that should have guarded me? Which meant someone had found a way around the guard. A convenience left alive too long, a door that never fully latched. I scrolled the recurring list again and mapped out the monthly burn. I'd normalized 4 phones when 2 people never called me back, insurance on a car that didn't have my name on the title, a bakery's winter rent supplemented by my spring raises, and now on top of it an art studio subscription to fuel a brand Taryn and Caleb hadn't built yet. In another tab, a pro forma mocked me, the kind with round numbers and vague optimism that had made its way around our dining table like a family prayer. Low risk, high impact, Caleb had said when he pitched me between bites of roast, like an angel investor who also takes out mom's trash. I created a simple text file on the desktop: boundaries I will keep. I wrote 6 lines and didn't dress them up. No co-signing. No paying debts I did not make. No covering utilities at houses I don't live in. No credit extensions just until next month. No phone lines for people who don't pick up. No more apologizing for saying no. I saved it and read it again. Not because I doubted, but because I knew the voice that would come for me later. The one that sounded like Margaret on a Sunday and Gerald on a Tuesday. The one that dressed guilt in family clothes and called it love. The rain thickened, drummed a steadier beat. I checked the merchant account again and found one more breadcrumb, a device name on the access log that matched an old phone of mine I'd handed off after an upgrade. I took another screenshot. Exit plan swallowed it whole. My thumb found the coin again. What do you owe the people who taught you to owe, I wondered, and what do they owe you for the years you didn't know how to stop paying? In my inbox, a calendar reminder nudged handover. Charleston, 3 weeks. I clicked it open long enough to see the flights the company had blocked out for me, then closed it. Another door. Another way to leave correctly with the lights off and the keys on the counter. My phone buzzed with a promotional email from the studio, bright and cheerful, new month, new possibilities. I almost laughed. I took one last pass through the ledger, confirmed the pattern, and let the outrage cool into something more precise. I wouldn't call tonight. I wouldn't warn. Whatever excuse, weighted confusion, clerical error, family could perform itself at Sunday dinner where it always did. I would bring silence and facts. I would measure the room. I nudged the coin to the edge of the desk and let it spin once on the wood, then caught it before it fell. I closed the spreadsheet, the exit plan, the boundaries list, the email tab, the reminder for Charleston, everything. The apartment exhaled. So did I. The rain kept its count on the glass. While I stood in the dark kitchen, let my eyes adjust and promised myself one last thing before bed. When the pattern breaks, don't tape it back together. Sunday dinners at my parents' house had a rhythm that didn't need rehearsal. The smell of roasted chicken, the low hum of a muted football game, the old oak table polished just enough to catch the overhead light. Mom moved around the kitchen in her apron that said, "Home is where the heart bakes," humming as if the entire week had been kind. Dad sat in his chair with the remote resting on his thigh, pretending to read sports updates but really waiting for the meal to start. I arrived 5 minutes early. Taryn was 15 minutes late. That was part of the choreography too. She swept in with Caleb behind her, carrying a white pastry box stamped with Mom's bakery logo and a handwritten label that said, "For the brand." Mom's face lit up like a stage cue. "Look who's here," she said, kissing Taryn's cheek as though she'd returned from war. Then her tone softened, rehearsed pride wrapping every word. "You're so brave, honey. Not everyone has the courage to walk away from a toxic place." I poured water for everyone, each movement automatic. It was the same routine I'd done for years, the quiet service that kept everyone comfortable. Dad asked about my work at the Portland branch, and I gave him the short version. He nodded the way he always did, a gesture halfway between approval and dismissal. Caleb adjusted his glasses, unfolded a few pages, and slid them across the table. "We've been working on something exciting," he said, smiling like a salesman. "A podcast/art studio hybrid. We want to make creative healing accessible to everyone. Workshops, collabs, that kind of vibe." Mom clasped her hands together. "Isn't that inspiring?" she said. "Your sister's finally using her gifts." Taryn leaned forward, resting her chin on her hands. "We already have a few local sponsors interested," she said. "We just need a little help with the launch. Nothing big." Caleb took over smoothly as if reading from a brochure. "It's low risk, high impact. We just need someone stable to co-sign, purely administrative. You'd be perfect, Callan." My fork paused over the mashed potatoes. "How much are we talking?" I asked. $180,000 tops," Caleb said in a tone that made the number sound like pocket change. "You wouldn't be paying anything, just lending credibility. It's really just a formality." Mom nodded along. "You know how these things work. Family helps family." I felt my pulse slow instead of spike. Their words came out like a well-rehearsed play, each character hitting the same emotional beats they always did. I'd heard versions of this before, only the figures changed. "What about the other accounts?" I asked quietly. "The ones still tied to my name." Mom's eyes flicked away. "You worry too much," she said. "Small things like that don't matter when it's all in the family." Taryn smiled, a flash of irritation quickly polished into charm. "You always make everything sound dramatic, Cal. Can't you just be supportive?" I looked at the spreadsheet in my mind, the phone bills, the car insurance, the mysterious creative studio subscription, and thought, here it is again, the cost of love with a service fee. "If I say no?" I asked. Mom sighed, heavy and patient. "Don't make things awkward for your father. He's tired." Dad set his spoon down gently, the quietest warning he had. The air thickened with unspoken rules: respect, sacrifice, silence. I nodded once. Let me think about it. That was enough for them. The subject shifted to lighter things: Taryn's vision, Caleb's brand strategy, Mom's plans for a holiday campaign at the bakery. They laughed. I smiled when I had to. Later that night, back in my apartment, the rain started again. I logged into my bank account out of habit. Another charge for Creative Studio subscription had cleared that morning. I stared at the screen until the numbers blurred, then took a screenshot and added it to my growing folder. My phone buzzed. Lydia. You okay? I typed. Can we talk tomorrow? I need to tell you everything. Her reply came fast. I'm always free for the truth. I closed the laptop, checked the email about my Charleston handover dates locked in, and whispered into the still air. If I have to choose, I'll choose the place that doesn't make me pay rent to be loved. The cursor blinked once more on the empty screen before I shut it. Tomorrow, I'd stop being quiet. Monday mornings in Portland always smell like damp metal and coffee grounds. The sky was gray enough to blur the edges of everything. I met Lydia at a cafe near the waterfront, the kind with fogged windows and an espresso machine that hissed like it was tired of secrets. She listened while I told her everything: the fake subscription, the co-signing request, the dinner that felt like déjà vu. She didn't interrupt, just reached across the table once, touched my wrist and said, "They've built a whole system around your guilt, Cal. You don't have to keep funding it. When I left, the air outside carried that chill that sits on your skin instead of your coat." I'd barely reached the car when my phone rang. "Mom." "Come home," she said. "It's important. Your father isn't well." The words hit the softest part of me first. For a second, I almost turned the car around without asking. But something in her tone, rehearsed concern too smooth, made me pause. "I'll be there soon," I said. When I arrived, the house smelled like lemon cleaner. Mom was wiping down the dining table even though it was spotless. Dad sat in his recliner, the TV flickering on mute, pretending to be absorbed. "Your father's had a rough morning," Mom said, voice careful, too calm. "Let's keep things peaceful, okay?" I nodded once. "Why is my old card showing up again?" She blinked, still polishing the same patch of wood. "Must be a banking error. You know how those things happen." Taryn, I asked, because I could hear footsteps upstairs. She appeared at the top of the staircase, perfectly timed, phone in hand. "Can we not do this right now?" she said. "I just needed to reactivate the account for a bit. I thought the card didn't work anymore." "Funny," I said, pulling up the screenshot. "It works fine, especially for your studio." Her smile cracked just enough to show the truth beneath it. Then she shrugged, tilting her head like I was being unreasonable. "You're making such a big deal out of nothing." Mom stepped in quickly. "Families make mistakes, Callan. We forgive each other. That's how we stay close." "I can forgive," I said. "I just can't keep paying for it." For a moment, the only sound was the low hum of the refrigerator. Then Mom looked at me the way she used to when I was a child who'd said something cruel without meaning to. "Your father's heart can't handle this kind of tension," she said softly. "You're hurting him." There it was, the weapon she always kept hidden behind the apron. I looked at Dad. He avoided my eyes, staring at the TV as if the muted game could save him. The guilt came like muscle memory, but this time it didn't stick. "I'm not the one doing the hurting," I said quietly. Her lips tightened. "You've changed." "I had to," I answered. "You taught me how expensive it is to stay the same." I left before she could answer. The rain had started again, slicing across the windshield as I drove. Halfway home, my phone buzzed with a message from Lydia. "Your mom called me. She said you're being influenced, that you're not yourself." I pulled over, staring at the text until the letters blurred. My hands shook, not from anger, but from the cold realization that they were expanding their reach. If they couldn't control me through debt, they'd try through love. By the time I reached my apartment, the sky had turned the color of wet cement. I sat at my desk, opened the folder called Exit Plan, and added a new line to the list. Cut personal contact. Keep only what's necessary. I closed the laptop and listened to the rain build into something heavier. It sounded less like weather now and more like a warning. The storm wasn't outside anymore. It was moving in quiet and deliberate, ready to test whether the line I'd drawn could hold. By Friday night, I was too tired to argue with my phone. The screen kept flashing the same message over and over: family meeting tonight. 7 p.m. I almost ignored it, but Lydia's voice from that morning lingered. Face it once, Cal. Hiding just gives them new rooms to haunt. So I drove across the city headlights, cutting through Drizzle Heartset on neutrality. The house looked smaller than I remembered, though the porch light still glowed like a lighthouse for the obedient. When I stepped inside, everyone was already positioned, Mom at the head of the table, Dad in his usual seat beside her, Taryn and Caleb opposite a bottle of red, open and half-poured papers stacked neatly between the plates. It didn't feel like dinner. It felt like arbitration. Mom's smile was taut. "We just need to settle one thing," she said, pushing a folder toward me. "Once you sign, everything will calm down." I sat, but didn't touch the folder. "What is it?" Caleb leaned forward, voice bright with false confidence. "We've finalized the studio proposal. The bank's ready to move once the co-applicant signs. It's a small loan just to secure the space." Mom added, "You're already the most stable one. They only need someone with solid income. It's practically a favor." I opened the file. My name sat there in black ink under co-applicant signature. My pulse dropped instead of rising. "Who added me?" I asked quietly. Mom smoothed the tablecloth. "Don't be dramatic. The bank just needs a name they trust." "Taryn." She picked at her nails. "Caleb submitted a test application to check approval rates. It's just procedural." I took my phone from my pocket, scrolled to the morning email from the bank, and set it on the table. The subject line glared like a mirror. "Your co-application has been received." The digital signature was mine. "I didn't authorize this," I said. "This is forgery." The word hung in the air like a bad smell. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. Then Dad's fist landed softly but firmly on the oak surface. "Don't make a scene. You'll embarrass us." "Embarrass you," I said. "Someone used my name to borrow 6 figures, and I'm the problem. Family doesn't drag family into legal trouble," he said through his teeth. "That's not how we solve things." "No," I said, "that's how we bury them." Mom's voice cracked a practiced tremor. "You're tearing this family apart. Your father built this home with his hands, and now you're going to destroy everything over paperwork." I stood up. "No, I'm just refusing to be the foundation everyone stands on while they pretend it's solid." Taryn's chair scraped against the floor. "You think you're better than us," she said, voice trembling. "You just walk in here and I think I'm done pretending this is normal," I said. Dad pushed back his chair, slow and deliberate. "Then hear this. From now on, decisions about this house go through your mother and sister. You don't need to be involved." That hit harder than it should have. "So the plan is to use the house as collateral," I said, half to myself. "That's why you needed my signature." Mom looked away. Caleb stared at his hands. I felt something inside me settle instead of break. "You've already decided," I said. "You just needed me to bless it." I placed my phone back in my pocket and turned toward the door. Mom called after me. "You'll regret this." "Maybe," I said, "but at least I'll regret it on my own dime." The front door shut behind me with the soft thud of something ending. Rain spotted my jacket before I reached the car. By the time I started the engine, I'd stopped shaking. Back at my apartment, I opened the exit plan, added a new line: legal counsel, identity protection. The cursor blinked beside it like a pulse. A new email arrived. "Handover Charleston. Confirmed." I stared at the subject line until the letters blurred, then whispered to no one. Sometimes the only way to escape a wall is to let it fall. A week passed, though the air made it feel longer. I kept my phone on silent, worked late, and began packing for Charleston. My flight to Singapore was confirmed, my future drawn cleanly on paper. But online, the story was already changing. Taryn had posted a photo of herself in front of a half-painted mural with a caption that read, "When family chooses money over love." It spread fast. Old neighbors sent sympathetic messages to my parents. A co-worker forwarded me a link with a hesitant note. "Is this about you?" The comments under her post read like eulogies for my character. Then came the phone calls. Mom rang Lydia first. She told her that I was confused, that I was being manipulated, that I needed grounding. Lydia repeated it to me, her voice soft but edged. "She's rewriting the script again, Cal. This time you're the villain." I told her to save the voicemails. I started recording every call that came in. My silence had become a weapon, and I intended to use it. 2 days later, I noticed something off in my bank account. A transfer of $2,000 had gone through to an unfamiliar routing number. The bank traced it to a device registered under an old shared login, one I'd forgotten even existed. It was verified from a known device, the rep said. "We can flag it as suspected fraud." I closed the account, opened a new one, and filed a claim. The numbness that followed wasn't fear. It was relief. Every lock changed meant one less door for them to open. By Wednesday, a new number appeared on my screen. It was the company's legal department. Mr. Reese, the lawyer, began a local bank contacted us regarding a signature verification issue. They believe someone may have used your electronic authorization on a loan document. My stomach tightened. "We're handling it," I said. But I knew the fire had escaped the house. If I didn't control the narrative now, it would control me. That evening, I drove to my parents' place one last time. The porch light was still on. I knocked, waited, then walked in. They were all there again, as if frozen in last week's tableau. I placed a folder on the table, printouts of emails, bank confirmations, the co-application form. "I'm not pressing charges," I said. "But if anything else goes through under my name, I'll let the law handle it." Mom's face went pale. Dad stared at me, jaw tight. Taryn stood, tears already forming. "You're cruel," she said. "You're punishing me for being different." "I'm not punishing anyone," I said. "I'm ending a habit." Caleb muttered something about loyalty. I ignored him. "You forged my name," I continued. "That's not creativity. That's theft." Mom finally spoke, voice shaking. "You don't talk to your sister that way. She's an adult," I said. "Let her talk for herself." For a moment, no one moved. The air felt charged, heavy with all the years we'd traded peace for silence. Then Mom whispered, "We're not a family anymore." I looked at each of them, the people who'd taught me to mistake endurance for love. "Maybe we never were," I said. "Maybe we were just an unpaid contract." The rain was waiting outside, the same cold drizzle that had followed me for weeks. I stepped into it without a jacket. Behind me, the house stayed lit, its windows glowing like a ship that had forgotten how to sail. Back home, I packed in silence. The apartment felt smaller now, but clean. No shared bills, no leftover obligations. My inbox chimed an email from HR confirming my flight to Singapore. Monday departure seat assigned, housing arranged. I closed the laptop and listened. The rain hit the window harder now, like applause from a sky that finally approved. I wrote in my journal, "Silence used to mean peace. Now it means a war I chose not to fight." I zipped the suitcase, turned off the lights, and let the room go dark. Outside, the city hummed beneath the storm, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like part of its noise. I was leaving not to escape them, but to find out who I was without the echo of their demands. The war they wanted would have no battlefield because I'd already walked off it. The night before my flight, the apartment wore that soft yellow glow that makes everything feel borrowed. My suitcase was zipped by the door, the silver coin sat on the table like a witness, and the city was a wet blur behind the glass. Lydia came by with a paper bag of takeout I couldn't taste. "You should see this," she said, handing me her phone. Taryn's post filled the screen, her in front of a painted wall, captioned with a neat accusation that I'd stolen her business idea and fed it to a foreign company. Comments stacked like stones. People I grew up with had shared it. The part of me that still wanted to fix things flinched, but the larger part knew what this was, the last rope thrown like a net. My phone buzzed. "Mom, if you have any decency left, come see your father." I stared at the message until the words lost their shape. I printed the emails from the bank, slid them into a folder, and told Lydia I wouldn't be long. She squeezed my hand. "I'll be here when you get back." Rain stitched the road all the way to the old house. The porch light burned steady. Inside, they were arranged like a tableau. Mom at the table, Dad upright and stern, Taryn with her phone face down, Caleb with a polite smile that didn't reach his eyes. No one looked surprised to see me. "We can still repair this," Taryn said quickly. "Sign the papers and we put this behind us." I set the folder down and spread the pages, confirmation emails, device logs, the co-application note with my forged authorization. "There's nothing to repair," I said. "There's only what happened." Dad's palm landed on the table, not loud but final. "We don't take family to court." "I don't need a court," I said. "I need honesty." Mom's mouth trembled. "What happened to you? What kind of love makes you this cold?" I held her stare and let the room hear me breathe. Love doesn't make anyone apologize for not paying someone else's bills. She glanced at Dad. He looked at the TV like it might rescue him. The door opened behind me. Lydia stepped in the way we'd planned if I texted quiet and present and stood beside me. Taryn laughed once without humor. "She isn't family." Lydia's voice didn't rise. "He hasn't been treated like family in a long time." I reached for the coin, set it gently in the center of the table, and nudged it toward Dad. "I kept this because I thought it bound me to you," I said. Turns out it was just weight. The room tightened. I looked at each of them. "Tomorrow I leave. No one here signs anything under my name ever again." Taryn's voice dropped to a knife edge. "You'll regret this." "Maybe," I said, "but if I do regret, we'll send the bill to me and me alone." Mom pushed back her chair, eyes wet and hard. "Walk out that door and don't come back." I almost smiled. "You always said I was the one holding this family together." Maybe that was the problem. I turned and left. Lydia's hand found mine at the threshold. The rain came down in ropes, drumming the roof of the car while the wipers carved rhythm from the dark. We didn't speak. At a red light, my phone lit up an email from the bank. "Investigation closed, fraud confirmed." I let the screen go dim, watched the city smear into silver and black, and felt something inside me unclench that had nothing to do with winning. It was the quiet you get when you stop negotiating with a fire. 2 months later, the mornings in Singapore had a different kind of light, clean and bright like fresh paper. My apartment looked over the river, all glass and air. I made coffee and watched the steam lift without thinking about who needed what from me before noon. No emails from Mom, no emergency texts, no sudden withdrawals I couldn't explain. I took the train to work and stood with strangers whose lives didn't lean on mine. In my head, I could still hear Mom's last promise. "We won't forgive this." But distance turned it into weather noticed, and then gone. One afternoon, my phone vibrated with a voicemail from her. I stood by the window to listen. Her voice was smaller. "Taryn found a part-time job. Your father's doing fine. We're okay." I stopped the message there. The feeling that rose wasn't victory or spite. It was relief so simple it felt like air. Maybe space was doing what closeness never could, forcing everyone to stand on their own legs. Lydia arrived a week later with a wrinkled photo from the night before my flight, 2 figures under rain, a car door half open, a life about to split cleanly. "Do you think they'll ever say they're sorry?" she asked. I thought about the porch light, the staged folders, the careful words meant to pin me to a place. "Maybe not," I said. "Maybe it's enough that they learn how to be quiet without me." We laughed softly and let the subject drift out with the tide. That night, I opened my laptop and searched for the file that had held me together for years. FamilyExpenses.xlsx appeared like an old song. I scrolled to the bottom and typed a final line, "Debt cleared emotionally and otherwise." I saved it, then deleted the whole thing. The soft chime sounded like a lid closing. I didn't need records to believe myself anymore. On Sunday, I walked to the river with the coin in my pocket. I turned it over in my fingers, felt the familiar grooves bite my skin, and saw Gerald's hand placing it in mine, telling me a man needs weight to remember where he came from. Maybe he was right, but weight and chain aren't the same thing. I drew my arm back and let the coin go. It cut the surface, pulled a brief ring of light around itself, and disappeared. The water sealed itself as if nothing had entered at all. I stood there longer than I meant to, not waiting for a sign, just listening to the ordinary sounds of a city that didn't need me to prove anything. The next morning's sun spilled across the table. I made coffee and sat by the window, heard birds instead of alarms, and felt the day come toward me without a bill attached. I used to confuse being needed with being loved. Now I know love doesn't drain you. It steadies you. Maybe I didn't lose a family. Maybe I finally found the part of myself that could walk past a porch light and keep going. The horizon flashed off the glass towers beyond the river, a bright line of possibility with no names on it but mine.